Okay, first thing I want to talk about is policy. Policy is really very important. It's the first thing that we're going to be going through this whole process exactly like an adjuster would be going through. The reason why you want to do that and learn that is because that's how it's going to happen in your home. You need to know exactly what's going to happen as the damage would happen and what you need to do. So the first thing I need to tell you about is policy. Policy is pretty simple and pretty easy to understand. We have 4 basic different types of homeowners policies. We have an HO1, they call it HO1, they call it a basic. We have an HO2, that's called a broad policy. And we have an HO3, that's called a special policy. That's the policy that I'm determining that you should have more so than anything else. And then we have a thing called a condo policy. That's called an HO6. Our book doesn't really talk too much about a condo policy, and there's a reason why. It's a very difficult policy. You don't really get very much for it, and there's not really too much I can help you with it. Your association policy will have to help you as much as possible, and that would be your association that would basically run that, not you. What I want to first go over is an HO1. HO1 actually has what they call 10 perils. In order for something to be wrong, that means you have to have a peril. Now, what do you think a peril is? A peril is smoke, lightning, fire, explosion, things like that. What most people think that a policy actually covers. Most people think that their policy has just certain types of things like fire, a flood, some kind of major catastrophe. But that's not the case. Your policy is there, given to you by your homeowner's insurance, for you to be able to indemnify or to keep your house whole. They don't want you to lose value in that house. They want you to make sure that you keep the value of the home so that if anything were to happen, they can resell your house and not lose any money. Well, in this type of real estate, that's not a big case, but it's still something for you to understand. When something happens to your home, don't be afraid to use your policy. It does not work like an auto policy. They can't cancel you, they can't non-renew you because you put in a claim. The reason why people think that is because it's a myth that's been kept out there by the insurance companies. They want you to believe that you can actually lose, either lose your policy or actually have it so that they can actually raise your rates. It doesn't work that way. So number one, don't be afraid about that. There are things called surcharges, but when you look at them, as far as the dollars of what they take from you, the maxes out about 10%, and that's usually after like a third type of a claim within a 3-year period. And if that would happen, think of it, 10% of that one last claim over 3 years, it's practically nothing. In fact, the money that you make off of it, it's downright ridiculous to even think about it. Okay, let's first talk about real quick some of the perils and things that you're going to go. If you look at your packets, which you all should have, in your packets you have a sheet here. It says page 9. It's actually page 9. That's actually in the book. And it goes over the perils. If you're going to be doing also things later on, like we're going to be talking about home inspections, make yourself a copy of this or make sure that you have this with you as you go around, because you need to know exactly what type of policy you have. Is it a basic? Is it a broad? Is it a special form? Okay? Because that's going to determine what your policy is actually going to cover. Okay, now let's talk about fire. Everybody knows about fire. They think about kitchen fires, they think about grease fires, they think about electrical fires. Fires are pretty simple, and people pretty much know what happens when you have a fire. Lightning. Lightning's kind of important. People think that if lightning doesn't hit your home, then you haven't had a lightning strike. That's not true. It could hit the pole 2 blocks away and affect your house. It could blow out every single thing, all of your electronics, all of your TVs, all of your computers and everything else, and you have just been affected by a lightning strike, but you didn't have anything hit your house. Now, most people think, well, I didn't hit my house, so I shouldn't worry about it. Not true. All your stuff go out, bam. You can usually find out by special lightning services that are actually on the web. And if you look at our website, which is www.thecompletementor.com, .net, you actually find out the information about lightning strikes, and that'll be on there. Now, explosions. I think everybody here knows when you have an explosion. If you don't, there's a problem. Usually, most explosions usually happen because of sometimes something that's dealing with gas. You don't see it too often with oil, but an explosion is pretty simple to understand. Windstorm, rainstorm, and hail. This is really important because most of the things that are going to happen to your house, believe it or not, are going to be weather related. Weather seems to affect us more than almost anything else, and we can pretty much see that from Katrina and everything that's happened with all the hurricanes, including all the tornadoes that have been happening in Tornado Alley. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you about rainstorm, depending upon what kind of policy you have, you need to look at it differently. If it's an HO1 or an HO2, if you have damage from rain that's come into your house because of a rainstorm or a windstorm and a rainstorm, if you don't have an opening on the outside where they can actually see an opening where the water came in, nothing inside is covered. It's very important that you have an HO3, a special policy to be able to get that, to be able to have everything that would be in your home covered. Smoke. Most people think of smoke, they're just thinking of the smoke that comes from the fire that's in their house. I'm trying to tell you that you can have many different kinds of smoke. One of the biggest kinds of smoke you can have is called a puffback. Who out here has ever heard of a puffback? A couple of you, okay. The reason why a puffback is really important to understand is because it happens with your heating system. And you can even have baseboard heat and still have a puffback, because wherever the heater is, it actually had an explosion. What happens is, early in the fall, your heater says, "Oh, it's time to turn on," and it'll shoot some fuel, and nothing happens. Shoot some fuel, nothing happens. Shoot some fuel, it catches, and it goes boom, and all that smoke and all that soot just starts floating through all your house. Now later on, I'll show you how to find and understand how to know that you've had a puffback. But I just wanted to let you know that puffbacks are very profitable for the homeowner. You're talking about a minimum of at least $10,000 when you see a puffback. So don't think it's nothing. And don't think that you don't even have one, because I'll show you later on that it's very easy that the majority of people who have had oil or gas at some point in time has probably had a puffback. If they haven't repainted their home, they'll find it quickly. The other kind of smoke happens a lot of times with chimneys and fireplaces. People don't realize that you're supposed to pull down those things and open them at the right time. And once you have billowing smoke coming in, oh, it was my fault. Well, let me explain something to you. If you have children and they caused the damage, if you caused the damage, as long as it wasn't intentional, and a neighbor or anybody who's visiting your home, that's all covered. Okay? Most people think that it wouldn't be, but it is. Especially if you had like burnt siding or something like that, you go, oh, it's my fault. What did I do? Geez. Well, don't worry about it. It's covered. And you'll be able to get all of your money back. Now, aircraft or vehicles running into your house. Now, or as I would say, maybe even a space shuttle. Those guys in Texas didn't realize that things were dropping from the sky, and it was going to hit their home or come close to it. All of that is covered. Vehicles running into your house. Now you're going to learn some things that a lot of public adjusters don't even know. They think they know, but they don't know. Only because a lot of the independent adjusters that are coming from the insurance company, they're not even as well trained as they should be. And here's one of them right here. It's called vehicles run in your house. Now, if somebody else's vehicle runs into your home, that's covered by your homeowners. But if your vehicle runs into your house, believe it or not, that's covered by your auto policy. Each policy is there for a reason, and they make sure that because they want you to make sure that you're making those premiums to something else. So when you're hit by your own vehicle, that's actually covered by your auto policy. Somebody else's vehicle, your homeowners, and they'll be paying through their auto policy. Now, riot and civil commotion. We don't have that too often, but when we do, that is covered. Remember, people always think of Watts and the troubles and trials that we had down in Louisiana with all that going on. All that would have been covered automatically. But usually, the reason why they didn't have too much of that, as far as real damage, was because of everything was completely wiped out to begin with, and they didn't have anything. But it does happen, but not all that often. Leaking of sprinklers. Not too many people have sprinklers, but if you do, that would be covered. collapses. A collapse is very hard to get in most states. In most states, the policies are actually telling you that it has to be brought down to what is known as to collapse. It has to be totally down to rubble. It can be gotten, but you literally have to have everything around you falling down around you. You're just not going to getting it just because something small had dropped. Okay, they're very, very strong on that. Volcanic action. Now, I haven't seen too much volcanic action. I guess some of those guys near Mount St. Helens are concerned about that. I guess the California, northern part of California, that would be concerned about that. But volcanic action, that also is covered, but not a big thing. Okay, I love this one. Falling objects. Now, I love this because there's a place called New Jersey. It's its own little world, and it seems a lot of weird things happen in New Jersey. Well, I know a lady who had, who here knows what blue ice is? Anybody ever hear of blue ice? Okay, you, Steve, yeah. Blue ice, what blue ice is that all that stuff that comes out of the latrine in the airplane, and it comes out at one shot. And it holds together in and it turns into a big giant size ice block. Well, this big giant size ice block came on down, fell right through this lady's house and into her kitchen. And just like she wanted to make sure that she kept this evidence, so she put on those nice big old rubber gloves, took that ice and put it in the freezer. Now, if we remember where that ice came from, now we have we have now new collateral damage. You know, it could happen with falling objects. It's dramatic. You can have it from a tree falling down. You can have it from. In fact, I knew a old timer. It was an old timer adjuster. He's no longer adjusting anymore. He's one of the old guard. He was sitting there and he's trying to have fun. And he says, now let me tell you, if a tree falls down on your yard and it doesn't hit a structure, it's not covered. By the way, that's not true. It's actually covered about $500. He goes, if it's not covered. So what I want you to do is to go out to Home Depot, find yourself a lamppost, stick it in the middle, and now you got coverage. Now, he was just joking around, and so am I. But you need to know that falling objects of any kind onto your house, that kind of damage, it's automatically covered. If you have an HO1 or an HO2 and you have something hit your house and there's no damage to the outside and things just drop off the walls, not covered. You actually have to have damage on the outside in order for you to have coverage with an HO1 and an HO2. That's a lot of things that also a lot of adjusters don't know. Here's one that, this one hits the north dramatically. You people in the south, you don't see this at all, and you sit there and you think we're crazy about this, but it happens. It's called ice damming. Weight of snow and ice ice damming. Ice damming is when you have your normal shingles, your asphalt shingles, and it starts to freeze and thaw, and the shingle starts to move up. And as it's moving up, it's starting to make an opening. And it just keeps on going, and then late in the spring, it just all melts and just runs right into your house. And you're sitting there going, what's happening? Man, look at the walls. They're just coming down. They're just destroyed. They literally will melt, and people just are freaking out. And then what ends up happening is they all melt, and they just warm, and they just move. The shingles go right back to normal. No opening. Okay, well, if you had an HO1, HO2, you're not going to get any coverage for it because you're not going to see any openings. So that would, again, be for an HO3. HO3s are a very good policy to have. We call it an all-risk policy. I'll go over that again. Weight of snow, that happens again when you have very shallow sloping roofs. You'll see that. And we'll go over it also later on how to find these different things when you're going through your home. This one is, everybody has one of these and they don't realize it. It's called accidental discharge of water. Now this happens in a lot of different ways. First thing it can happen is by your sinks, by your tubs, toilets, and any kind of appliance. Water overflows and goes into your house. Now the problem is let's say we're talking about a toilet. There are a lot of different words that you can say to an adjuster, and they'll be negative towards your claim. They're not true. They're just the terminology that you're using, and this is one of them. You call up the adjuster, and the first thing you say is, "Oh man, I had a backup. My toilet overflowed and it just backed up." Well, guess what? They're going to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Client. That's not covered. Well, why isn't that covered, ma'am? Because backups aren't covered. Well, see, that's actually covered by what we call a blockage, and blockages are covered. What they're talking about is that it's coming from the sewer from the city. Now, you and I both know that that's not what happened, but they're going to automatically take your words and say, oh, well, the way you said it, that's the way it happened. Because remember, you're representing your claim. So if you're representing your claim, how you say things are very important. So that's another consideration. But the actual name of the peril, when you write it on the paperwork, is called accidental discharge of water. And that can be from many different things, dishwashers, washing machines, you name it, it can be devastating. And hot water heaters. When water is hot, it does even more damage faster than anything else. And we'll talk about that more later. Rupture of heating systems, pipes, any kind of bursting of any pipe, all that's covered. That's another big thing. Here's one I've seen this happen a couple times. People have air conditioning units, and they're actually up in the ceiling. They're actually up in the attic. And they've got these little pans around them to catch the condensation, but there's a lot of dust and crap that comes, and it fills that little hole, that little drain hole, and you've got a really hot, humid summer, and it's just creating moisture like crazy, and before you know it, it's just rolling over top, because you got to have a pretty good sized house, and all this water is just rolling over, hitting all the drywall, and just making major destruction. That's also covered. And that would be covered, if you're looking at your sheets, that would be covered under either an HO2 or an HO3. After volcanic, we have no more coverage for HO1. My personal opinion is, no matter where you live, at least have an HO2. And if you live in a very nice home, you better have an HO3. Freezing. The times when freezing would not be covered is if you have a building that has nothing in it, and you've kind of semi-abandoned it, or you vacated it for a while. You're going to have a problem in trying to get that covered, because if your heat, like you turn off the heat, you have a house for going for vacation, and you automatically think, well, I'll just turn down the heat, and for some reason, or you ran out of oil, or whatever happens, that would not be covered if it's totally been abandoned for a while. I believe it's 60 days. So you need to make sure that you're taking care of your homes, especially vacation homes, so that won't happen, because you don't want them to deny that, because that could be devastating. We have what they call artificial generated electric current. The only time that you're going to see that is if you're in a really strong industrial neighborhood, and your house happens to be close nearby, and you've got some big companies, and they're generating their own electricity. That may happen. It'll almost happen similar to like a lightning strike. A big shot of electricity gets shot through the system, and it ends up, burning out something in your home. That's very hard to find and very hard to prove. Most of the time, you would probably assume that it was probably more so of a lightning strike. Problem is that if there's no lightning during that time, then you have an indication that it was probably from some other type of artificially generated power. Now we have special coverages or open perils, and this is only when you have an HO3. HO3s, or all risk policies, are really cool. Now let's say that you have a home, and it's not really your home. It is and it isn't. Because you just had somebody die, and you're now an executor. If you're an executor and you're going to be going through somebody's house, one of the things that you have to be concerned about is things that you can't see, and people were trying to hide. You'll see rugs where rugs shouldn't really be. You'll see pictures where pictures shouldn't be. You'll see furniture where furniture should be. You move that, and you find, oh, well, gee, they had a stain, or something else happened here. Or there was a hole in the wall, or something along those lines. You need to be able to know that those are called accidents, and accidents are covered under an all-risk policy. Paint on carpet. You could have burnt siding, numerous different things. And actually, with an HO3, what we say is that if it's not excluded, it's covered. And we're going to be talking about exclusions in just a minute. Also, there's called, in your policy, this is how your policy works. One part of your policy giveth. One part of two parts of the policy taketh away. And then another little part of the policy giveth again. Okay, well, I'm going to show you the last part. We already went through the first part, which is the giveth, which was all the perils. Now I'm going to show you the little giveth at the end. And the little giveth is called other coverages. Things like debris removal. I mean, who in the world would think that, well, all that stuff that you have to move out of the way, all the stuff from when you're redoing all the construction, all that's going to be moved out. So debris removal is covered. Reasonable repairs. A lot of companies with reasonable repairs, what you're looking at is, we're talking about a roof just had damage to it. So they want you to either quick repair it, or they want you to cover it with a blue tarp or something. That's going to cost money, have a roofer come out and such. We have plumbing that happens, it bursts and everything else. Not all the companies are covering reasonable repairs when it comes to plumbing. Some of them do, some of them don't, but you have to do it anyway. You need to be able to stop any additional damage that might be happening to your home. But that's called reasonable repairs. Trees and shrubs, you have fire services. These things are automatically covered as far as additional coverages. And additional living expenses, which we'll talk about later. Now, where do these policies come from? How do they, are they different from every different company? Are they the same in every different company? Are there different little alterations everywhere? Yes, there are. There are little alterations, but basically an HO1 is an HO1 all across the country, and HO2 is the exact same thing, and an HO3 is the same. Where did this happen? It's called the National Underwriters Association, and they are the ones that the insurance commissioners look at. And this, by the way, this is something that most of your other public adjusters won't know. And these are called ISO policies. These ISO policies are what you're going to find when it comes to the definition of what should be in that particular policy. And that's where the insurance commissioners go to, and they say, okay, this is the level and this is the standard. All these policies have to at least admit this particular standard. So that's what you'll find there. Now, types of payments, how they pay. This is important. There's different types. There's one called replacement cost, and I think you'll soon find out that that's the best way to go. Then there's called actual cash value. Now, I don't know who developed actual cash value, but it was somebody who was an accountant. Replacement cost is exactly what you think. You're going to replace the cost of whatever it costs you to build it right now. That's important because cost of things are fluctuating. When you bought your policy, the construction would have cost one thing, but the prices have increased. Just having the damage in Katrina, we automatically had a lot of materials automatically increase in price. So therefore, everything would have increased. So therefore, the cost of repair would have been increased. That is covered under replacement cost. Your structure is covered under replacement costs unless you have, oh no, here we go again, an HO1. It's not covered under an HO1. So think about it. Do you really want to have an HO1? I can only hammer this only so many times. Now, the other one is called actual cash value. Now, here's how they find out actual cash value. Actual cash value is what they say is called replacement costs minus depreciation. That's the formula that they use. Replacement cost, what it actually costs to replace it, minus its depreciation. Now, what is depreciation? Let's say we had a TV set. The TV set was $100 right now, brand new, if we bought it right now. But we've had it for 2 years, and it only lives for 5. So that means that we've just taken 40% of that value out of that house. So now the actual cost of that, what they would actually pay you for that TV set, would only be $60. That's called depreciation. So they would say it actually cost 100 minus depreciation, which is 40. We have what left? 60. And that's how you pay it. Now, one of the things you'll find out is where they do that is on a particular piece of paper that you have. It's called a deck page. Every single year, they send you out a declaration page. On that declaration page, it's really important for you to understand that building is A, other structures is B, personal property is C, D is loss of use. Now there's other two different things, there's E and F, and most of those are for when somebody actually hurts themselves or injures themselves. We're not going to be talking about them because they're pretty straightforward. But A, B, C, and D, I want to talk to you about right now. Building. Your buildings are, again, I told you, replacement cost. And they're going to be at the value of what it costs to replace the building. Now you're looking at your house and you're saying, man, my house sells for $250,000 or whatever it sells for. And you're looking at the replacement cost and it may say only $150,000. Well, to actually replace that house, to actually rebuild that house, if you had to, and remove everything and put everything back up, may only be $150,000. Now, if you live in places like California or places where the prices of homes are going up dramatically on a consistent basis, you have a problem with this because you have to have what is known as at least 80% coverage of whatever the replacement cost would be. Otherwise, they're going to penalize you. So what I want you to do is to try to find out what the actual cost would be and make that change. Because the 2% that they owe, 2% or 3% that they raise you every single month isn't always going to cover that, and you could find yourself in a bad position. And usually those particular areas is where they're doing it. Every place else is not a problem. Usually 2 to 3%. It goes along with about the cost of what you're doing in your area. Other structures. Other structures are usually always about 10%. So let's say we had a $100,000 policy. That means other structures is going to be $10,000. Now you're saying to yourself, I don't even have anything on my property. Don't worry. You can't deduct it. You can't tell them you don't want this and they'll lower your price. It's just there automatically. It's part of the policy. But then again, you look out your backyard and you see this little metal storage thing that you only cost maybe $500, and you're going, hey honey, that's covered for $10,000, you know. So don't worry about it. You've got extra coverage. But I will tell you this: if you've ever thought about building that extra shop or something like that, and you want to know what would it be covered, now you know that those extra covers, those extra particular buildings or structures outside are covered for that, and you can determine that. By the way, you can get an endorsement later on to increase it if you need those kind of increasements. Some people have more other structures than they do actually in their home as well. Personal property. Personal property, now why I had talked to you about actual cash value before I had even gotten to this point was really simple. Personal property with HO1s, HO2s, and HO3s are standard actual cash value. You think all this lovely stuff in my home, but their first thing they're looking at is how much I can depreciate all this lovely stuff that this man owns or this lady owns, and that's what's on their mind. Now, you can later on, I'll show you that you can get an endorsement to actually get that to a replacement cost, and if you have some really expensive things in your home, it's worth the time to look to get it. And it's pretty inexpensive for what you need. Loss of use. Loss of use, actual loss of use. Sometimes it'll say actual loss, sometimes it'll actually say a certain amount of time, sometimes it'll actually say maybe it's for a certain amount of dollar value. Sometimes 30,000, something like that. And that's going to depend upon the individual company. But you need to look at that and see what you have, because that's all going to determine if you have to be out of your home during this time when everything is happening in your house. You have to be compensated because you have to live someplace else because you can't live in your house right now. Now here's a little good thing for you. If you have, let's say you have a kitchen, a dining room, 3 bedrooms, and 2 baths. Well, guess what? You're entitled to a kitchen, a dining room, 3 bedrooms, and 2 baths. That's what you had before. They have to then make sure that you can get that again. Now, you're not always going to be able to get that. Now, if you look at our website, we're trying to put together, and if we haven't already, an actual place where you can contact an individual company that actually can find you residencies during that period of time, so that you can actually do it, especially if it's a month or less. Because renting, so most people would rather live in a home or a condo or at least even a townhouse instead of having to live into a hotel room. Who here loves staying in a hotel room for several months? Nobody. Yeah, well, that's the truth. There's some companies out there like Corman Suites and things like that you can get for at least a month or 2 months at a time, but it's not easy to find. On our website, we have a company that actually looks for these type of things, and you'll be able to then find it, and it's totally free. We don't charge anything for that. Deductible. Now, I'm going to talk to you about a claim that happened. Actually, it's actually in the book. A good friend of mine, Todd Riley, and he had a damage in his house, and he goes, Mark, I'm not sure if this is worth me doing anything because it's $1,000 deductible. Well, when I show you the money that we got out of it, in fact, we got over, I think it was over $8,000, and he didn't even realize that much damage had been done, the dollar value. It was worth it for him to do it. But your deductible, $250, that's great. $500, that's fair. 1,000, if at all possible, it doesn't pay to have a $1,000 deductible. The one good thing, though, is because you're using this book and you're not using a public adjuster, you can actually save yourself 25, 35%, or sometimes if it's a large claim, 10%. And that money would normally help you to also cover the deductible. Now, endorsements. There are numerous different endorsements in the book. The book has oodles of different endorsements, but there's two endorsements that I think are really important. The first one is called Special Personal Property Coverage, and they call that an HO15. This is what I was telling you about. Going back to actual cash value to go to have all your personal property is a replacement cost. It's really important that everything be replacement cost if you need to have it that way. What you need to do is do our contents evaluation, see what the value of everything would be in your home, and then turn around and say to yourself, if everybody was depreciating in my home, could I afford it? Could I afford to replace everything and pay that extra amount that they're going to depreciate? The depreciation actual rating chart is actually in the book so that you can even determine what they would be able to depreciate all of your personal items. The next one is called sump pump. People go, well, what the heck is this? I know what a sump pump is. That's this thing I have in the basement. But what's a sump pump endorsement? Well, by the way, if you're going to get a sump pump endorsement, you need to have a sump pump. It's kind of important. But let me tell you about a sump pump endorsement. The sump pump endorsement, what it does is says, if my sump pump fails for any reason, the power goes out, it busts, it can't handle the capacity, if damage happens to my basement, it's covered. Because in your basement, let me tell you something, when the water comes as rain and hits your house and goes in, that's covered. If water comes in and hits the ground and then comes into your house, that's called groundwater or a flood, believe it or not, and that's not covered. But if you have a sump pump endorsement, that water would then also be seeping into your walls, whatever, and get into your house. And if the sump pump didn't maintain itself, well, guess what? Now it's covered. And sump pump endorsements range somewhere between 40, as high as 40 to, I've seen them as high as about 600, depending upon the size of the house and what you're using. But it really pays off, especially if you have a well-done and redone basement. And your house would have a tendency to have that kind of water happen to it. Because the one thing you can't do is, you don't want to have mold and mildew in your house, and that's an easy place to have that happen to you, especially if you have a major catastrophe when it comes to water. Also, this would be the last 6 particular thing that you would have on your deck page, endorsements. Now, exclusions. Remember when I was talking about HO3? If it's not excluded, it's covered. Well, here we go. Ordinance of law. The only ordinance of law, an ordinance of law means your normal local government is saying something to you and they're saying, okay, you have to do this. You have to replace your sidewalks. You have to do whatever. That would normally not be covered. The only time that it is covered when it comes to glass. All your lower glass, if it wasn't safety glass, well, guess what? Your door glass has to be safety glass now. They will pay to have it upgraded to safety glass. So that is the only endorsement of law that is actually covered. All the rest aren't. Earth movement. We all saw those big giant-sized mudslides that happened out in California, and we saw, hundreds of people just buried under mounds of dirt. Well, the only money that they received was from some kind of death benefit because they didn't get it from their homeowners. That's not covered. It's a shame, though. We'd already talked about this, groundwater and flood. Again, that's not covered. Negligence. Who here has ever been into a house or driven by a house in a neighborhood and you look at this house and you go, my goodness, don't they ever do anything to this house? It's falling apart. It's rotting right in front of us, and it's bringing down property values. Well, guess what? If you know that it's been negligent, so does the adjuster. He sees it the same thing that you do, and he understands it the same way. That doesn't mean that when you go into your house and your kids, who here has kids? Okay, little tornadoes, I call them. Little tornadoes, you go into the room and you go, my goodness, something exploded in here. That's not negligence. That's just children, okay? Negligence is the normal maintenance and things that you need to do to your home, and you don't do it, and the home just totally disintegrates around you. That's considered negligence. War. Who in the world would ever think that we would have the possibility of that ever actually being used? War. We've now actually been declared a war, and if something would happen into your house or something would happen, that's going to be excluded. It wasn't excluded for the high rises because war hadn't been declared yet. It has to be declared. Nuclear hazard. Well, we do know that that's less and less now than it had ever been because they haven't been increasing any nuclear things. But we do have nuclear hazard waste that is transported around, so that also would be not covered. And they call it an act. In other words, if you actually did it on purpose, now you wouldn't do that, and I'm not telling you that you ever should do that. You should never actually damage your home on purpose to get money. That's called fraud, and that's not covered. And I would extremely tell you to never, ever do fraud. Now, putting in a claim is not, like if you did damage to your house by burning the siding or something like that, and you're thinking to yourself, oh no, or you spill bleach on a carpet and you think, oh no, they're gonna think I did that intentionally to make money. I'm going to tell you right now, especially if it was an accident, number one, the insurance company will not try to test you unless they find special evidence some other way. They're not going to talk to you about that, because if they talk to you or they try to say that they think that you did that on purpose and they can't prove it, that's called bad faith. They don't want to go anywhere near that. We had a friend of ours, was a judge who had bad faith, and the claim was about $50,000. Well, he ended up getting $200,000, $150,000 for the bad faith, and $50,000 for the claim, the actual damage. So they don't want to get anywhere near bad faith, and that is an automatic bad faith if that happens. So to let you know that one. Now, we also have those are your exclusions. Now you have conditions. These are, again, the other things that are the taketh-aways, as I call them. Insurable interest. Well, if you're not on the policy, you can't just walk up to somebody else's house, throw an egg at it and put damage to it and say, now I want to put a claim on this. Can't do that. But remember we were talking about if you're an executor, executress, administrator, administratrix, depending upon what your title is, you have the capacity to put a claim in on a deceased property, even though they're not there anymore. The policy is still enforced because you now have the right to do that. So that would be insurable interest. Outside of that, if you're not on the policy, you don't have insurable interest. Excuse me. Duties after loss. Now, the major thing about duties after loss, what we're talking about here is that the insurance company is telling you that, man, it just happened. Immediately, you need to contact us. Something happens, you got to immediately contact us and let us know. Well, I'm going to tell you something else. I'm going to tell you not to do that immediately. Something damage happens, you immediately call them. Do not do that. You need to first make an assessment of what it is. Remember, you have to represent this claim. They come out tomorrow. Are you prepared? Are you ready? I don't think so. You need a little time to get this together. They're not going to sit there and say, well, you waited 5 days. We're not going to pay. That's not the way it works. In fact, you can actually have a claim and not even know it. I always tell people that 5 out of 10 people have a claim and they don't even know it. It's between $5,000 to $10,000, which I'm going to show you later how to find. Now, one of the things is that you understand is that you don't need to just call them right away. It's take the time and do an evaluation of everything that you have. Get prepared. That's what you would do if you're going to school, going to college. You would be prepared to go to your classes, because you need to be able to be getting a good grade. Well, it's the same thing here. In order for you to get that good grade when it comes to the money that you're going to get from this claim, you better do your homework. So after you've done your homework, then you make a phone call. Because majority of times, unless you're dealing with an area where there's just a major catastrophe, and the odds are that you're going to make a phone call, you're not going to see them for weeks on end before they even get a chance to get to you. But otherwise, you don't want them being able to come out the next day or several days right after that when you haven't had a chance to actually get yourself prepared. Theft, getting a police report when you have theft. That's very important. They're going to want to see your police report. They want to, so even though you're just basically telling your story to the police officer, tell your story to the police officer. This was here, it's now gone. It wasn't here before. And you want that piece of documentation. Documentation is everything. Credit card company. This is a very smart thing to do. You want to be able to, you had your credit card stolen, you better make sure that you contact your credit card company. Remember, if you notify them immediately, you're only liable for how much? $50. By the way, there's an endorsement out there for credit card theft. Don't do it, because it's not a good thing. Because if you only are looking for $50 for the actual that you would actually be liable for, the cost of that endorsement is a lot more than the $50, and you're paying it automatically out front. So that wouldn't do that. Protect your property. We were talking about that before. If something happens, you have to be able to minimize the damage. Be it putting a tarp over the house, making sure that the water, this is something that every homeowner should know. And I mean every homeowner. If you don't know where the shutoff valve is for the water for your house, shame on you. Take the time to find out, because when major water damage happens, the easiest way to stop the damage is to turn off that valve. Shuts everything down. Very important. If you have a chance to do additional plumbing in your house, I would put additional shutoffs in different areas so that you can shut off extra water. I did that with my house, with my claim, and it made dramatic help for me. So always know where your shutoff valve is, so that you can help minimize the claim. And make temporary repairs, which is what you're talking about. Now, let's say, this is the one thing that I will tell you. Let's say we're talking about a roof. In a roof, you have, let's say, about this much of the roof has been taken out. Big chunk about this big. Well, when you have the guy replace it, just say, look, hey, whatever you have on the truck, don't take the time to try to match it. Just whatever you got on the truck, put up there. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it's easier to show that the damage was there when they don't match than if they do match. And would you rather have a patch, or would you rather have, it may be even semi-close, and now you got to argue that it doesn't really look right, okay? And it's not going to actually perfectly look right, but if it's close enough, you're going to have an argument. Why even go near that argument? If you got white shingles, man, black shingles. You got red shingles, blue shingles. Just the same type but different color, because this way, your argument, or do they match, don't they match, that's no longer to be dealing with. You don't have to worry about that. What I want to talk to you about right now is scope. One of the things that's really important to understand, in fact, is number one, what does the word scope mean? What scope means is what's totally going to be included into your claim. Everything that's going to be part of the estimate will be part of the scope. So we need to be able to start asking ourselves extremely delicate questions. Questions that you would normally not ask yourself. And as my grandfather said, there's nothing wrong with talking to yourself. At least you're talking to somebody intelligent, and there's nothing wrong with answering yourself. Just don't get yourself going, huh? So we're going to ask some questions here, and I'll tell you what, it's really important because it'll start to give you the understanding of how you need to look at your claim. First question you need to ask is, how did this damage happen? It's really important. If it's water damage, it doesn't always mean that it was rain. It could have mean that you have a leaky pipe someplace that's in the wall. You need to know how the damage actually happened. It's going to give you an indication of where to look other places and things that you're going to have to do. If you're dealing with water damage, if you're seeing water damage on the outside of the walls, like the walls that you have on the outside of the house, the odds are it's not from plumbing, because very few people have water pipes in the outside walls. No, maybe down in the southern states they may, I don't know, but I know in the northern states that's a definite no-no because they don't want them to freeze. So asking yourself the right questions about where did the damage and how did it happen, okay? The next question you need to ask is, what other parts of my home have been affected? It's really understanding, and I'm going to get into more details of some of the rules, but I wanted to let you understand that you need to get into the mindset as just, it's not just here. It just didn't happen in just this room. Did it affect another room? If it's on a first floor and it's a water damage, the odds are water goes downhill. If it's water, think about it. Where does water go? It goes downhill and it follows level. So if water came down and it hit the wall, the odds are it might have actually gotten the carpet wet. Now, you may not know that it's been wet because you didn't either walk that area or whatever, but you would know if you pulled back the carpet, you'd see the stains in the carpet. You know that it had gotten wet. So you need to understand and think about what other parts of my house also were damaged by this. It's not just the damage you see right up front. Damage can be in many different floors, and it can move. I've seen damage where it's here, and then it travels along a joist, and it'll end up finding itself almost 15, 16 feet in another room that you would have never thought of looking in, because the joist just kind of rolled down the joist and didn't actually land anywhere between there. So it's important to know what other parts of my house were damaged. Okay, it's also understanding to understand what will bring my house back to pre-existing conditions. How was my house before? Everything, all the drywall was correct, all the plaster was done, all the trim was everything. Now, what do I have to do to fix this, to bring it back to pre-existing conditions? What are all the things that have to do? One of the great things about we have a companion book, and if you haven't bought the companion book, this is the time I would definitely say it's worth the money to buy the companion book. The companion book actually tells you each different part of your house when it comes to the actual materials. If you're dealing with drywall, it'll talk to you all about the neat things you need to know about drywall. If you talk about plaster, you talk about wooden floors, if you're talking about roofing, whatever the major thing that you need to talk about, it's all in there. And we're talking about a lot of detail, a lot of detail. This is over a 3-year project, and trust me, there's a lot of detail in here. That's where you go to. The book is called The Toolbox for the Homeowner Adjuster, and it's a companion book for the Getting Your House in Order. So at that point, that's where I would go to. I would go to that book. You can either buy it on the web if you haven't received it before, on our website. Again, Getting Your House in, the CompleteMentor.net. I'll get that right. Yeah, right. That's the CompleteMentor.net. Now, here's another question you need to ask yourself. What happens if somebody else did the damage? Maybe it was my neighbor's tree hit my house, or maybe somebody else's car hit my house, or maybe it was a contractor who was in my house, or somebody who was in my house did damage to my house. That's called a subrogated claim. Subrogation is what they mean is that they're going to go after the person who did the damage. That means the insurance company gets your right to go after them for the money. That's a great claim. Why you want that is because now the insurance company is much easier with you. They know that they have another place to be able to get their money back, and they will be a lot more flexible with you because they know it's a subrogated claim. So understand that it makes a difference to know exactly who did the claim as well, who made the damage, if it's possible. And if it was your brother-in-law, well, if you always want to get back at him, then this is the time. That was only a joke, by the way. Okay, now, here's another question. If you look at on page 41 in your book, it says, how do I find out if the claim is big enough? That's really important. Think about that. I've got adjusters right now that told me that this was physically impossible to do, but we've done it, and it's quite really unique. What you're going to be doing is, and I'll teach you later, how to measure out the area. It's called square footage. Sometimes it's square footage, sometimes it's cubic footage, sometimes it's going to be cubic yards. It's going to change, and I'll show you how to do all the measurements and everything else. That's actually also in the book. It teaches you how to do that. Now, once we've done the measurement for the area that's been damaged, we need to know particular type of things that can happen in your home. And we have a whole list of them here. We have painting, drywall, asphalt shingles, we have vinyl siding, and if you have aluminum siding, it's going to be pretty darn close to the vinyl siding, so even though it says vinyl, it's going to be pretty close. I would say carpet, it's always a big thing that's always happened, gets damaged. Ceramic tile. Okay, and your ceramic tile is not going to be that far off from a wooden floor, depending upon it's going to be somewhere in the range. You're not trying to get to the specific dollar amount what this claim is going to be. You want to find out what kind of ballpark you're in. There's 2 ways of doing this. You can do it this way, or you can have a contractor give you an estimate, and they're going to give you an estimate what they think it's going to be. Now, that estimate's not going to be good enough for you to get the money that you're going to need, because it's going to have a lot of ways for the insurance adjuster to poke holes holes in it and to take money away from you. But it gives you an indication of what, if the claim would be big enough for the work that needs to be done, if you could pay for it, if not pay for it. But here, let me go through this process so that you can do that. If you don't have the opportunity to get a contractor before the time comes for you to talk to the adjuster and to know if you should even talk to the adjuster. Painting. If you notice, it actually has here $1.58 square foot. Now that's a lot of combination of a lot of different things that would be part of the painting process. Then you would multiply that times the square foot. Then what I want you to do is then multiply that times 2. Okay, and understand that then there's going to be even more things in there. You multiply that times 2, and then you times that times what state that you're in. If you notice, you see on here, you'll see Arkansas. It's minus 2%. So that's actually less than what this would be. But then again, you turn around to Alaska, 74%. I'll tell you what, it's expensive to live in Alaska. But I'll tell you what, if you go down, it also has in here New York City. And New York City is 84%. It's one of the most expensive, it is the most expensive place in the country to have any work done. So if you were to take that number, multiply it, and then times it times 84, you automatically, you're going to know that you're going to, if you live in New York City, realize that, you know, the smallest little thing can be extremely expensive. At that point, now you know if you need to go forward or not. Remember that that's just the beginning. There's so many more things that are going to be attached to this claim that we're going to be talking about, but that gives you an indication, is this worth it or not? You have a good understanding. Plus, you can look at your deductible as well. Now, who are we up against? Who is the person that's going to be coming to my house and telling me that I can or can't get this money? I'm going to tell you who it is. This person is called either an independent adjuster who works for himself, quote unquote, or somebody who is an adjuster that is an adjuster for a particular insurance company. They work for that insurance company. Again, we need to ask the right questions. There's some questions you need to know. You don't just expect this person to walk through the door. By the way, when they walk through the door, you almost feel like you want to give them a fleet enema because their faces are just terrible. You know, they have no senses of humor. I'm going to tell you that right now. I don't care if it's a man or a woman, they have no sense of humor. But if they do, that's a good sign. That means that guy's having a good day, and he might be just, you know, everything might go real easy, especially if you've got everything documented ahead of time and can show them and there's no problem. But in general, you're going to find out that their demeanor is not that way. One of the first questions you want to find out is, does he work for the insurance company direct? Is he an employee? Or is he an independent? Because independents, see, you know, ask him, you're getting paid by the check by them, but are you an actual employee? If you're not an employee, I need to know that. Reason why I want to know that is because the independent adjusters have a less power than an in-house adjuster. They're easier to push around. They're easier to go to a supervisor from the insurance company, and they don't like that at all. Not when an independent adjuster is giving them hassles, because they can easily go to somebody else and they don't worry about firing him. He doesn't, you know, it's easy to get rid of him, just setting up another contract with somebody else. But it's harder with an independent, or the guy who's actually in-house, he's actually an employee. Doesn't mean that you can't shake up their tree a little bit, but it means it's just not as easy. So knowing that is a very important thing. Here's another thing that's really important that you need to know. What do they have as far as authorization? How much money can they actually write a check for without having to talk to somebody else? In the beginning, when they first start out, it's really small if they're new and young adjusters. They've been there for a while, it could be as much as $50,000. So you now know that you're talking to the guy who makes the decision. There's an old negotiating trick, trick that they used to use, which was higher authority. And higher authority would be, you can sometimes you do it with your wife. You know, the salesman comes in your house and he's talking to you about these different things, and your wife's not there and he's trying to sell you and everything else. And you say, well, you know, and he goes, he's looking for the decision for you to buy. And the first thing you go is, well, I really can't make that decision without talking to my wife. And you know, then the guy goes, man, I wish I had the wife here. Like an idiot. I should have done that. But at the same time, it's the exact same thing with the insurance adjuster. If you know ahead of time that their authority is $50,000 and your claim is only $15,000, they already told you they have the authority. They can't go around and say, hey, well, I've got to talk to my supervisor about this. And if they do, they're lying to you. And I would call them on it very quickly. One thing they don't want to be is embarrassed in front of the homeowner. And but if you have that information, he may forget, and he may actually do that. Now you've got him where he actually owes you. He's lied to you, and now he owes you, and you can use that against him or her. People ask me who's tougher, women or men adjusters, and I've seen tough ones on both, and I've seen easier ones on both. So it doesn't really depend upon gender at all. There's no guidelines along as far as that is concerned. Let me tell you something else about this adjuster. There's a lot of adjusters. Let's say that we're talking about adjusters that they call them CAT adjusters. They're there for a catastrophic scenario. A hurricane just came through or something else. They'll try to pull a certain amount of adjusters from different parts of the country. But when they're doing this, the one thing that's really important for you to understand is sometimes they're trying to fill it in with new guys, because they just can't handle it all by themselves. They got too many claims, and they've got to get it done within a certain period of time. So they'll put 3 people through what is known as a 3-day fast quiz course, and I mean, most of it is actually learning software more than it is knowing what's going in the home. You will end up knowing more than they do going through this book, even probably more about policy than they do going through this book. Now, the average adjuster, they know a lot about policy. The ones who have actually been adjusters for a while, that's their real bailiwick. But I'll tell you what, a lot of them have never swung a hammer, have no idea what a saw is, have no idea that joists are not exactly always 16 inches on center. They're not all that sharp when it comes to construction, for the most part. Very little of them have a lot of practical experience. What they may have is about a 2-week or maybe even a 3-week course that they might have gone to an outside organization, or they've done them in-house. A lot of the ones have gone to those particular schools, reproduced it in-house, and they do it in-house. But 2 weeks is not a lot of training time. Think about what you do. Are you a CPA? Are you a doctor? Did you go to high school? High school alone is probably about as much, you have almost as much as them for the 2 weeks that they've gone to. But if you've got a 4-year degree, heck, you're sharper than they are. If you've been through any kind of tech school, you've gone through more experience than they have. If you've just been on the job and learning that way through somebody who's mentoring you, then you've learned more and had more experience than a lot of these guys have just by going through a 2-week course. So don't be intimidated by these guys. They're really not that. But policy, they do know. So you want to be sharp on your policy, but don't worry about the actual construction and how things are done. I do have in my book, it talks about an organization that you can get these things called PDRs. And I believe it talks about it in the service section. You can get it. And for like $60, it'll give you, you can get all these PDF files. There's like 160 of them for $60. And you can go in and you can actually get the details on what it takes to actually know how to fix particular things according to how the insurance adjuster does, and a lot of times how major construction is actually done. If you want really a lot of detail, if you're a detail-oriented person, you can get that there. You're going to get a lot of detail on its own through the companion book, which is the toolbox. But you can, if you want even more, we're trying to make sure that you have everything that you need through this program. So I would go there, and you can get that. In fact, I believe it has the website. You can go on and buy it through there. Basic rules of adjustment. These are the things that are your tools that you need to know when you're going into this. There's a thing called continuance. Now, I'm going to talk to you about here, and then I'm going to show it to you later. Now, but continuance is really important. Floors just don't start here, like carpet, and just only have it in one room. If you have openings and you have hallways and you don't have any kind of what they call break points, which I'll tell you in a minute, the walls keep on going. Like, how many times have you seen, like even in here, the paint goes there and it goes up the wall and it goes on the ceiling, and it's one color. This whole room is painted all one color. There are no break points in this room at all, because even though it's a different material, it's the exact same color, and you're going to see the difference on it. So break point could also be with paint. It can be with other materials like carpet, tile, anything that keeps on going from one room to another without having what is known as a break point. Now, what are break points? Doors are break points. If you go up into your hallway and you see a door, as soon as you shut that door, it's a break point. But you know what? Let's say that I can actually tell you one instance where a break point and a door don't matter. First thing is, it was a glass door, so you could see right through it, okay? Because that's what they're saying. Once you shut the door, you can't see on the other side, but that's the way it is. But that's not true with a glass door. Plus, let's say that the wood's going this way, okay? And the door is right here. Well, the wood doesn't go like this. There's no way that you can cut off and then start again. The wood keeps on going, and it's in multiple different layers and multiple different strata. So that would automatically then give me the wood in the next room. So that would not be considered a break point, and I would argue it that way. Now, when you get our estimates, we will also help you argue and tell you a little bit about some of the things that you need to do. One of the things that's also a really big point when it comes to adjusting rules is to understand how to negotiate. Let's say that we have the damages right here, and I want to get them to agree to a particular thing right here. But if you keep on going through using the continuance, there's another part of the damage that happened over there because it's like connecting. If I get this, then I can then get that. But I don't sit there and show them that until I have him agree or her agree to this first. I have them agree to this because there's a rule that says once they give it to you, they can't take it back. But if I show them this, he's going to say, well, unless I give him, if I don't give him this, then this is not connected, then I don't have to pay. Okay, that's really important. You think about that. So first thing you want to do is and now I say that you have multiple things that are connecting, and there's one here, and there's another one in another place, there's one more thing that connects over here, and it's in different rooms. Get all the major points locked down first. And they get, oh yeah, that, I can see, yeah, that's damage, okay. Now, when you got that all done, you got all those agreements, now you go for okay, now I'm so glad, Mr. Adjuster, you said that, because let me show you something. Because of that, this happened over here. And like here's one simple thing. You have wallpaper. You have a little trim here, and you have another little section, another section of wallpaper. It happens actually in the book. And then there's another piece over here, this wallpaper. Well, guess what? They're all part of a special pattern. They're all interlinked. They all interlink. So I got this little piece of wallpaper. It was a small trim up here, but it matches everything else in the place, and everything else matched before. So I got that wallpaper. So now I can replace this section over here, which doesn't even touch that section over there, and another section over here that doesn't even touch that section over there, because they're all part of a pattern. They're all the same ones, and they're all within the visual sight of everyone. That's a simple way of being able to link things together. It's really important that you do that. But you make sure that you get them to agree to the first one first, and then link it later. Don't show them the other thing and then try to link it, because then they're going to say, well, no, I really don't. And they'll fight you on that because now they got more at stake. Okay? Be wise and innocent at the same time. And remember, information is always proprietary until it's finally given out. Now, indemnification. This is your strongest tool that you have in every single policy. By the way, one of the things that they're going to end up trying to tell you is that, and later on, and I'll talk about this, is that the policy is always right. Whatever says the policy, that's the final thing. But one of the things I want to talk about is that in the policy, it also talks about indemnification. You have to be brought to pre-existing conditions. Where were you before? This is why it's so important to take care of. How many times have you been in a restaurant? Every one of us. In fact, once I tell you this, you're going to be looking at this every restaurant you go from now on. You're going to be up there and you're going to say, look at the ceiling tile. It's got a damage here. But it's different from this one over here. They replaced it with something that was totally different. It's not the same pattern. You can really tell. Well, guess what? When the adjuster would go in to look at the other damage that they had over here, they're going to say, well, they don't all match, so I don't have to give you everything that matches. Okay? Understand that consistency in taking care of damage that happens in your home needs to be done. If you just haphazardly just think, oh, I'm just going to patch this, I'm going to put a Band-Aid there, not a good thing. Remember, if you're going to resell this house, what's the first thing they're going to do? A homeowner's going to go by, and or somebody who's buying it, they're going to look at it, they're going to go, let's see, what's that? Oh, don't worry about that, we fixed that. And immediately in their mind, your price value of your house just went down. And then you go into another room and they go, well, what happened over there? Well, don't worry about that. We fixed that. But you didn't fix it. You patched it, and it keeps on going down. And you want that actually to go. You want to keep going up, and it's not. It's either going to stay where it is or go up. And the only way that you're going to have it go down is by not taking care of the things as they happen. Too many homes that are beautiful homes. Your mom and dad, they bought a beautiful home. By the time you're a kid and you're leaving, you're going, man, this place is a dump. It's because mom and dad didn't fix things. They either didn't have the money to fix it, but they didn't realize that it was a claim and they could have put it in. And it was over periods of years, and it would have automatically not affected them, and they would have had it all done, and it would have not come out of their pockets. In fact, you probably could have taken some more vacations. Now, don't go to mom and dad and say, look, it's your fault because we didn't go to Disneyland. I don't want you to put any guilt trips on your parents. But just think about it. Do you want to do that to your kids? Okay? Now, here's another really cool thing. Now, this is very important that you understand this one, because this can be adding to your pockets at least 20% of what the whole claim is. 20%. Who here would like to have an extra 20% on the claim? Oh yeah, hands for everywhere. Okay, this is real simple. It's called the three tradesmen rule. And it's not hard to get 3 tradesmen for any particular job. Let's say we have water damage, okay? Well, if drywall was damaged, that's a carpenter, right? Paint, that means the paint's got to be done, that's a painter, okay? And then we'd say we have, it was a roofer, so I got roofer, painter, drywall. It's not hard, many ways, to be able to get more than one tradesman. In the book, we have all the different ways and all the different things that you can look for to break up. You want to not look at one guy who can do everything, but multiple guys who can do the one thing to get it done, so that you can get your 3 tradesmen in there. Because when you get the 3 tradesmen in there, you're now allowed to get 10% for overhead, 10% for profit. Bam, bam. Those are like that Lugosi guy that does the thing. Bam. We just got a big one. Bam. We just got another one. Here's another one. Sales tax. Contractors don't put sales tax in. Contractors don't put the 10 and 10 in. Contractors don't put the sales tax in. Sales tax. Pennsylvania, where I live, it's 6%. So if I got the 10 and 10 in that's 26% right there. Okay, it pays just to have our estimate, and you can't just do that in an estimate. It has to be done right. Now, and you got to show them that there's the three tradesmen. Now, one more thing that's really important here is called additional living expenses. Now, we kind of talked about that a little bit before, but we were talking about as far as where you lived. But actually, there's more expenses than just where you're living. You've got things like phone. If your phone's worn out, because before you had something, maybe a company like Cavalier or something like that, you had $50 a month on unlimited local and long distance, and now you're in some place that you're paying through the book, or you're paying everything through your cell phone. That can get expensive real quick if you don't have the right package, And so that goes up, but you need to show them what it was before it happened, and then show them what it is now, and then show them the difference, and they'll make up the difference. So you could have phone, additional travel. You're now farther away from your work and from everything else because you had to find a place there was any place local for you to live. So now that additional travel, that's gas, that's you really can't do wear and tear, but at least fuel, and fuel right now is expensive. So that could be an additional amount for fuel. You just need to be able to show the difference that you're paying between now and then. So receipts. Receipts are always good to have, and it's always good to do that periodically. Just keep a certain amount of receipts around to show a period of time that you were living and what the costs were. Another thing that might be also in there would be sometimes you can have it where there's well, that's pretty much most of the basic ones. You'll find a few more. They'll creep in. Each different person has different little weird things that are increase their living expenses. Here's one. You are eating out because the place that you're eating is a hotel, and that and you're either eating in the hotel or because you don't have a kitchen anymore. So if you don't have a kitchen, that additional expense for eating out every time, that's also an expense that you normally would have had because you would have been eating at home and your costs would have been a lot less. Now, another really important thing, we call this a holdback. And I want to tell you right up front, a really neat little rule. You can't, holdback is when you is when an insurance guy wants to give you a little gotcha. It's like,
Okay, you're getting something from me, I'm going to give you something back.
this is when they try to get you. But there's certain things they can and can't do with it. A holdback, usually they'll try to, what they do is they'll say they'll depreciate. Now remember, they're supposed to be doing at a replacement cost, but when they do a holdback, that's what they're doing. They're depreciating either the wall or the carpet or whatever it is, or the roof or that, and then until you replace it, then you'll get that holdback money back. But they hold back, and sometimes it could be 20% or whatever. I've actually seen adjusters and actually heard an adjuster actually talking to other adjusters, telling them that, plaster has been around for thousands and thousands of years. In fact, it's like pristine plaster right inside the walls of the pharaoh's tombs. And then he turns around and he says, now when you get plaster, try to depreciate it at least 50%. Well, how can it last for millions of years, hundreds of years, thousands of years, and yet you want to depreciate it 50%? Also, we do have a small depreciation chart, a little bit in there about hard goods and things along those lines. It's not as detailed as I'd like, and I wish I could give you more, but that's all I had. And there's not really too much detail in there. But don't let them go overboard on it. Catch them on it. Talk to them about it. Say, especially if you know that you may or may not be doing certain work because you may do it a different way or whatever. Remember, if you do the work, then it comes back to brand new again. If more damage happens in your home, then you can claim it again at the same location. But if you don't fix it and you don't show it to them, and you don't repair it, then it's not going to be covered. Now, here's that little rule I was telling you about. If it's a repair, there's no holdback. Now you say, what do you mean by a repair? There's a difference between replacement and repair. Let's say we're talking about a floor, a wooden floor, and water got on that floor. Now, if it just raised the grain a little bit, and I said, well, the best way for me to, and it didn't buckle in, didn't do any other major damage, then maybe we just want to re-sand it and put a new finish on it. Okay, that's a repair. No holdback. No holdback on that. But if I replace sections of that floor, and then refinish it, I replaced it, there's a holdback on that, okay? Or if I replace that whole floor, it's a holdback on that. If I just repaired the cabinets, then there's no holdback. But if I replaced all the cabinets, then there could be a holdback. So that's one of the rules. So always check them, because if you had repairs, they can't and they're not supposed to put a holdback on a repair. Now, that's the basic rules. Now, these are the major rules for an insurance adjuster. This is their rules, and their rules are different than ours. Their first rule, number one, is the client is only deserving what they had before, nothing more. Now, the true statement is actually the client is no deserving what he had. The client is only deserving what he had before, nothing more, nothing less. But that's not how they see it. Now, doing this claim by yourself, you can do things that a public adjuster can't do. I'll give you an indication. Let's say we're painting a wall or painting a room, okay? Now, you painted the room the right way, right? This means yes, this means no, but it's always yes when I'm talking to you. So you painted the room the right way. So you put a primer and 2 coats of paint. Okay, and you also prep the wall. So you go to the Mr. Adjuster and you say, Mr. Adjuster, he says, is it true that I'm allowed to have only what I had before, nothing more, nothing less? Now they're going to stay away from bad faith as far as they can. I talked to you about that before. So they're going to say, which is the truth. They're going to say, that's true. That's what it says in the policy. And they're like, oh, great. I'm so glad you said that, because when we painted this before, we had a seal coat and 2 coats of paint. Because I guarantee you, he's not breaking out a penknife and sitting there and scratching on the pat and see if that's what you did. He's not going to have. So there's things you can do that I'm not telling you to do fraud. What I'm telling you to do is to, when you do things the right way, don't let them take advantage of you. Okay? Use the system to take advantage of them, because they will take advantage of you at any point they can. Now, rule number 2 that they use. Okay, let me see what I can make the client settle for. Now, I'm going to let you listen to something that's absolutely mind-boggling. And I know major news medias right now would love to have copies of this, and they would love to find the guy, but I'm never going to tell them who he is because, look, the guy's just doing his own job. The company tells him what he's got to do, and he's an insurance adjuster who teaches other insurance adjusters. And what he's doing, he's showing them in a bathroom. Now, the average bathroom in the United States is 5 by 9. Okay? Now, this particular bathroom that he's talking about has a shower stall, and it's all tile. Okay? The base is tile, everything's tile, and then the tile comes out, and then the whole floor is the exact same tile. The whole house, this whole room is all the same tile. And then the walls are all tiled, and the floor is all tiled. I mean, it's a tiled bathroom. It's, something like you'd go to, at a restaurant, but it's really nice, and they did it really nice. Now, he's going to take you, and he's going to show you and talk to you about the pan. That's the pan that's in the shower. Now, if that got cracked, he needs to then replace all those tiles, and he's going to say, well, we're going to let you put in small little tiles, little mosaics. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you go into some really expensive showers, they've got nice, big, giant-sized tiles. You don't need to put just small little mosaics. He's lying right there. First lie. You can put the contractors today are really good at knowing how to properly do that. So you don't need to go with. But he's telling you this because he'll say, oh, you can even put in marble. Ooh, and the ladies go, marble in my bathroom. Isn't that nice? Oh, well, I'll tell you. But marble is so cheap when it's only a little chunk that they're taking off of a bunch of waste and everything else. It means nothing. It's like throwaway stuff that you normally would throw away anyway. So he's not really doing you any favors. Then they're going to say, well, and then we got to take at least maybe 1 or 2 courses above that, depending upon the size of the pan, to be able then around the base. And he's going to say right now, the first thing he's going to tell you is that, there's no way that you're going to match this tile. And he's right. There's no way, and don't even try. And if the adjuster tries, call him on it. Call him on it very quickly. There's no way that they're going to find exact matching tile unless you literally just put the house in and there's another. These things don't happen. There's just no way you're going to find it. So, but he's going to sit there and he's going to tell you, oh, well, what you're going to do is we're going to look through this house. Wow, she's got a purple rug. She's got purple soap. She's got purple this, purple that. Everything in here in this bathroom it's got all this extra little purple stuff all over the place. She must love purple. Well, great, I'm going to take advantage of that. Well, man, why don't we put an accent strip of purple all in here? Well, I don't know. And he says, oh, better yet. He says, why don't you mix and match different types of colors of purple and put them in there? Ooh, wouldn't that look nice? And then the husband comes in and he says, well, I don't know, that kind of looks stupid having an accent stripe at the bottom of the thing there. And he goes, if I was going to have it, I'd have it up here where people can see it, and appreciate it. And he goes, well, I didn't think about that. My goodness, you're so smart. Yo, he's going to make you feel good that you made that decision all on your own. Meanwhile, he thought about that a half an hour ago. And he says, well, now, that's a great idea. So I'll open up some of this, and then you can go in and you can do that. You can take care of all that, and we'll put that up there. And then the grandmother comes in because she actually owns the house, and she's sitting there going, accent stripe up there? Nah, this is my house, and it's my house. I'm going to have an accent stripe that goes all through the whole bathroom, all the way around, so it looks pretty. Wow, Grandma, that is amazing. I don't know why I didn't think about that. He thought about that an hour ago. Okay? And then but he's going to make sure that we're not going to put the accent stripe down below. Let's stay away from that, he says, because if you do that, there's a 99% chance that you're going to crack the tile on the floor. And we already got the tile in the thing. We don't want to deal with the tile on the other. Then he's going to say, well, and then tell them, hey, if you don't do this, you'll probably be out of your house for 14 days. I don't know about you. When I look at the Learning Channel and all these channels, they're always talking about how you can just take a room over and just totally redo it over the way you want to. Modernize it. Really make it, as a public adjuster, I hated when they put these accent walls on because I lost my continuous. But, you know, they're always doing this. You want to make it look nice, look pretty, change things around because you don't want to move. Heck, if you can, it's cheaper to do something that way. Well, why wouldn't you want the money to totally change the whole room? And look, if you're out of the house, they're paying for you to be out of the house anyway. It's like a mini vacation in some ways. You know, if you do it the right way. Because they're trying to tell you that it's an inconvenience. And he'll even sit there and go, he'll say, now, if you're a smart person who understands policy, or you're a public adjuster, or you have an attorney, they probably wouldn't agree with what I'm telling you right now. Well, I'm trying to tell you, guess how much he's stealing from this homeowner? Considering the time that they would be away from their home and also everything else, it's between $2,500 to $3,000. But yet they're trying to make him, he's trying to make them feel good that he's there helping them through this process. He's just lying the whole time. So I want you just to get ready so that you can hear this. We're going to play that right now. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you was number 3. Number 3 is really important. They say, if the client doesn't bring it up, neither will I. If you don't take the time to show them, see, it's your responsibility to show them what went wrong and why it needs to be fixed and how much it costs. And if you don't show them, they're not going to open their mouth unless it's so obvious that they might be considered bad faith. But there's so many things that could fall into a category with. So that's their number 3. Number 4 is, and I was talking about this before, the policy is the final authority. Whatever it says in this piece of document right here is the final authority. Well, remember when I told you that the state law says that you, well, actually I didn't tell you. The state law says that you must be indemnified, and that it says right in that same agreement that the state law supersedes this contract. The state, I'm going to say this 3 times, the state law supersedes this contract. The state law supersedes this contract. That means that the state law says you must be indemnified. What's the definition of indemnification again? Brought back to pre-existing conditions. This is so important because guess what? If I'm not brought back to pre-existing conditions, I don't care what's in their policy. It has to be taken care of. And this is a trump card that you use whenever you can. And it's usually sometimes you have to use it in court, but it's always there available to you. And we go into more detail on it also in the book. I can go into as much detail as I can right here. Number 5. Now this is their trump card, or they think it's a trump card. If I can't argue the point, then I'm going to find myself an expert. Because remember, I'm not an expert. I've got 2 weeks experience, and I'm just this job trying to make money, and my hair's falling out, and I feel like crap everywhere I go, and I screw people all the time. But hey, you know, if I can't argue this thing, I'm going to find me an expert. You know what the definition of an expert is? X is a drip under, X is a has been, a drip, and a spurt's a drip under pressure. So remember, if they're going to have their expert, you're allowed to have your expert, okay? And make sure that they're there at the exact same time. Don't let their expert not be there at the exact same time. And make sure their expert doesn't know the other guy. And they're not friends or buddies also. And make sure that, you know, because they're expert. And you know what? Here's something that happens and sometimes falls back into their own face. Because they're not sure. They don't know, okay? And what happens is sometimes the expert goes, no, that's nope, that's not that problem. That's not what you thought it was. It's actually this. And it'll actually work against them. Once that happens, or they say, we're going to send something away, a carpet to be checked to see if it's, you know, if we can find a match, or siding to see if we can find a match. Whatever the experts outside that they send something to, they have to follow whatever and you make sure that you get that copy of that same report, because they'll get a report for it, because that report could work in your favor. Don't assume, and don't let them assume that they're telling you the truth, okay? They're supposed to follow whatever that report says, but you want to see it. Do not let them get away with it. If they say they're going to do a report, great. I want to see it, okay? And that doesn't even mean, even if it tells you one thing, that still doesn't mean that you can't argue the points. But I'm just telling you, if it goes against them, you want that evidence against them, okay? Don't let them get away with that. Now, That's pretty much when it comes to the insurance adjuster's rules. Most of those rules are pretty easy to work with, and you can if you know them ahead of time, you can compensate for them. Most of them are just trying to get the ignorance of what you don't know, and knowing this book will make a big difference. You will no longer be ignorant. Okay, what's next? What about your deductible? Remember we were talking about a deductible that it could be too high, or that people think of that way? Well, there's another problem with deductible and what people think about it. They actually think that they have to pay the deductible first. I've met people who sit there and go, well, I'm not putting in the claim. I don't have $500 to put in. Well, you don't have to put $500 in. What happens is they pay you, let's say they said it's $5,000 for this claim. Well, they're going to take out the 500 from the 5,000. They're going to send you 4,500. Okay, so you don't need to have your money for your deductible. I know it seems that would be the way, and the way it almost reads, but that's not the way it is. So that's a very important thing for you to have. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you is about an estimate. And if you look on page 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, we have the estimate of that person I was telling you about, Mr. Riley. The guy who said, I've got a $1,000 deductible, is it worth me doing this? Now, in this estimate, you're going to see that we got multiple rooms. By the time we were done, we got the kitchen, we got the dining room, and he only thought there was damage in only one room. But we had that one thing, we had that great rule for us, which was what? Continuance. This place had tons of continuance. I mean, it was continuance out the butt. And then there was little damage in little rooms here and there, but that room also added more continuous. So we ended up getting the kitchen, the dining room, okay? We got the master bedroom, the attic. We got the bathroom, the upstairs hallway, the stairwell. We got the foyer. We got the laundry room. He isn't even expecting all this. He's basically getting his whole house repainted and redone over. Why? Because he understood the rules from reading the book. The rule was continuance, no breakpoints. That worked in his favor, okay? And in the estimates from contractors, like I said, if you're trying to quick find out roughly if it's worth doing or not doing, that'll give you an indication. But you need to know is that a contractor is going to bundle his estimate. You may see one or two lines, bathroom, $3,000, and he'll kind of put some lines, but he doesn't put any numbers. He doesn't tell you what you're doing in the bathroom. Like in here, let's say we're doing a kitchen. We got kitchen here. Remove debris and cleanup. He may not even put that in. Final construction cleanup. There's another one. Remove and replace wallpaper. Remove and replace gypsum board. Remove better grade wallpaper. Replace better grade wallpaper. Remove better wall covering border. Replace wall. I mean, all this in detail, because what's going to happen is that the insurance adjuster, he's going to look at this, or she's going to look at your estimate from the contractor, and what he's going to do is he's going to say, okay, well, where did you get that $3,000? And you're going to say, well, the contractor said it was worth $3,000, and he's going to say, well, look at mine. It's all broken up, and mine doesn't show that it's going to be $3,000. So we'll go with mine because mine has the details. See, that's why people go, well, you're asking $250 for an estimate. Well, trust me, the money for $250 for that estimate, and all the extra things that we're giving you, FCS reports, bulletins, and we're giving you a proof that our numbers. By the way, there's not an estimate out there that I've seen any insurance company that I've seen as of yet that they haven't altered the numbers. They do what is known as unit pricing, and they actually alter the software so that it actually has a lower unit pricing than it should be. So that when you can have the same square footage, the same software program, we don't modify ours at all, and it's designed for Podunk Center, Florida, okay? And they're supposedly designed for Podunk Center, Florida, exact same everything. We look at them, My goodness, how come ours is higher than theirs? Simple, they've modified them, okay? And we give you an affidavit to prove that we have not modified. Now, out of the 7 companies that have software, 5 of them use what is known as Craftsman Book Company database, okay? Now, that's the one we use. And Craftsman Book is not Craftsman from Sears, to let you know that. They are a highly rated and top-notch software program and database, and that's the one that we use. So, and we don't modify ours at all. So, to give you an indication that we are proving that we're not modifying ours. So when you have both of them, and they both have everything in there, that they put everything we have, but their numbers are lower, well, you take them to court and you say, well, I can prove that mine hasn't been modified. Let me see your proof. Guess what? They won't have it. By the way, we also talk about different things as far as how to win in small claims court. You don't have to use an attorney all the time. And there's also a piece in there that shows you how to do that. Now, if you have all your documentation, that'll make a difference. And estimates are very important. I'm going to talk to you about later about gathering the data so that we can easily do this, so make it simple and an easy, transparent thing for you to do. Now, remember I told you we're going to talk about getting paid. That means getting one of these from the insurance company, a check that gives you everything that you need to know about how you're going to pay this off. It's got numbers on it and things. Now, first thing they're going to want you to have, which is you need to send in a sworn statement proof of loss. Well, when you set up an estimate with us, we actually do the sworn statement proof of loss for you. We send it out to you. You don't have to worry about filling it out. We send it out for you. It's already completed. If you're having problems with your adjuster and trying to lock down a price, you're going to have to go through multiple different processes. You may have to go through an appraisal. In our one book, we have called the toolbox for the homeowner adjuster. In the back pages, I have some really great letters that you can send to the adjuster when they're not doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, and or if they're not giving you the results that you need, or if you need to actually contact their supervisor and kind of beat them over the head using the supervisor to do that. So, and great ways of being able to document everything that you're doing so that you're making sure that you have the right paper all the way through, so that if you have to go to court, you can show that you've made every proper step all the way through. Now, the book goes into much more detail as far as getting paid, but the second book has the letters in it. So make sure that you look in the back of the second book where all the letters are. And let me know. Give me some stories. I'd love to hear your stories about how you got paid more than you thought you would. I would really appreciate that. You can send those, by the way, to thecompletementor.net. Go on there and go to and just further things about contacting us. I'd love to hear your stories. Thanks. Guys, let's break.